Hey everyone, my name's Alexandra and I'm a watercolor artist. We are coming into fall, coming up to Thanksgiving soon here. So today I wanted to teach you guys how to paint a watercolor pumpkin floral painting. So the idea is that this is something that you guys will be able to paint and hang in your house and use as fall decor. Let's get started. For supplies today, I have 2 cups of water, 1 for clean, 1 for dirty water, a napkin for drying my paintbrush. For paintbrushes today, I have Princeton rounds, number 6, 8, and 12. For paper, I'm using Arches 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. And lastly, for paint, I'm using a combination of Winsor & Newton Series 2 and 3 tube paints. For this painting, we're going to be painting a mixture of florals, leaves, as well as a pumpkin. Because our pumpkin is sort of sitting in behind everything, that's going to be the last thing that we paint. So what I want you guys to do to prepare your paper is we're actually just gonna draw out where it's gonna go. So I'm just gonna sort of draw central, kind of a pumpkin shape here. And I'm doing it really light with my pencil just because I want the pencil to kind of disappear after once we start painting it in. I'm just drawing a guideline on where it's going to be, and we are just going to jump right in with painting florals in front of it. So to start, I'm going to use my number 8 brush, and I'm just going to start by painting a nice big flower right here. I'm sticking to fall themed colors just to make it look really autumny. You guys can paint whatever flowers you want, but I am going to start with a red rose here. And I'm just going to mix it with a touch of orange to give it a nice sort of neutral color tone. Okay, so to start, I'm gonna paint it to the right a little bit of where my pumpkin's gonna be. And I'm gonna start just by painting I had something on my brush there. Just sort of 2 really small half circles here. And then getting my paintbrush wet with my water, I'm just gonna work my way around and add little curves going all the way around. I do have a tutorial on how to paint loose watercolor roses where I go a little bit more in depth. So if you guys want to know how to paint these, then feel free to check out the video. But the idea is that I just keep adding shapes sort of in a circular motion until I'm happy with the size of it. And while it's wet, I really want to take advantage of that and go in and add some more pigmented paint and just let it sort of bleed in. So I'm only putting it in parts of where I've already painted, and I'm just letting it move with the water. We'll go back in and add some details later, but this is a nice easy way to get the base of our flower. Okay, so now that I've done that, I want to add in some more flowers to go with this. So we're gonna do sort of a cream colored flower, and I'm just gonna go into my paint here. So how I'm gonna do that is go more into my brown paint that I have, and we're just gonna do it nice and watered down. Just gonna mix it on a clean spot here. And I'm not really doing any super specific flowers. I just want it to be fall colors. So beside my rose here, I'm gonna paint some petals. I'm gonna do 5 petals sort of in a circle here. And the last one is kind of, looks like it's underneath where my rose is. And now into the center, I'm just gonna go with a little bit of a darker brown color, and same thing that I did with the rose, We're just gonna add that right in the center here, and as everything dries, we'll continue to add more details. So right now it kind of just looks like a blob of paint and of color, but don't worry, we're gonna add more, and yeah, it'll look more like a flower. So now that we've done that, we can go and add some leaves in. So the main idea with this is that we're just filling in kind of a little cluster right here of florals, botanicals, and then we're gonna fill in the background, but it's just gonna make it look really nice. We just wanna balance out everything that we're adding to it. So I am going to add to the bottom of my rose here, we're gonna do a nice big green leaf, and I kind of want everything sticking out so that it looks more like it's laying flat. So starting from this point here, I'm gonna pull my paintbrush back to get a little bit of these jagged leaf edges. And I'm painting only one side, and then on the other side, I'm leaving some white space in the middle to sort of act as the vein of the leaf. Now while it's wet, I can even go in and add a touch of yellow paint if I want, just to give it a little bit more depth and interest. And then I'm gonna do the same thing right up here, so it has a second leaf coming out. And to get these jagged edges, I'm just using the tip of my paintbrush, and then I'm applying some pressure as I pull back. And now, same thing that I did with the last one, I can add some different colors of green into the leaf, and you'll see the variation in color more as it dries. Now on this other side here, one thing that you guys could do to fill it out is add kind of what looks a little bit more like a vine or a branch. So to do that, I'll start with doing a super thin green line, just so that we know where the stem is. And then I can go in with my brush. I'm putting the tip of my paintbrush down, and I'm applying, I didn't quite have enough water there, but I'm applying pressure as I pull back in sort of a C curve shape to get these really nice, effortless looking leaves. And I'm just gonna do that, working my way along the stem, keeping in mind that I'm having everything in a direction where it almost looks like it's lying flat on a surface. I'm just making some of my leaves a little bit bigger so that they match up with the other ones. Now, right now, it feels like there's something missing down here. So what I can do is add another leaf, and then we will add some more flowers in after we've painted our pumpkin. But I'm just gonna add one more leaf coming down right here. And the idea with this painting is that it's something that's super easy, that honestly anyone can do, and it's such a nice way to just add some fall decor to your house. So now that we've done that, we are going to paint our pumpkin in, the first layer at least, and then we're gonna fill this out a lot more. With watercolor, one of the things that you guys will notice is sometimes you have to jump around back and forth a little bit just while layers dry. Also being very mindful of planning out your painting and where you want to add things in, because it's often hard to paint things that are lighter over top if you've already painted darker images on your painting. So I'm going in with my number 12 brush, and I'm going to start with this right hand side here just by adding water to it. You guys will be able to see this a little bit easier once I start adding paint, but I'm just getting my paper nice and wet because we're going to use a wet on wet technique here. And on my palette, I'm just going to mix up my orange paint. And now I'm going to add it to my water where I've painted, focusing a little bit more on the edges, a little bit more on this inside edge here, just because I want it to look kind of like a shadow. The nice big brush is good for this because it's really easy to spread the paint around. And as you guys can see, I'm leaving a bit of a white portion there so that it looks like it has some reflection to it. So now that we've done that, we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm going to rinse my brush in my clean water second just to make sure that it is ready to go. This is Princeton's Aqua Elite brush. It's one that's a bit newer that I have, but I love how much water it holds. I find that for doing a lot of things with wet on wet technique, it works really, really well. So I'm doing kind of that same half moon shape on the other side. And then we're just going to follow the exact same concept just on the opposite side. So you can tell that I'm not putting all of the color in right away. I'm adding it slowly, just to make sure that I don't overload my painting, and then this way I can be a lot more intentional with my control of where I want to add my color. So mixing my paint up and adding the darker to that inside edge. And then a little bit on the outside, but I'm just being careful to keep that lighter end. And this side turned out a little bit more red than the other side actually, but that's okay. I don't mind if there's some variation. Now I'm going to follow the same idea, but I'm going to go to the center here, and I'm painting it so that it's a little bit more oval on both sides. And following the exact same thing, we're going to add our color in. And for this one specifically, I'm keeping the lighter color in the center. And we'll just keep working our way around. So now I can paint in this last section here. And I'm gonna do it a little bit lighter right now, and then I'll likely add some more detail kind of as we go, as it dries a little bit more. So still having the brighter orange towards the middle. So now I can move this paint around a little bit with the water on my brush. I'm going over my leaves just a bit there. And now for these inside portions specifically, I'm gonna let this dry a little bit and then we'll go back in and we'll add some detail. But in the meantime, we're gonna go back to adding our details. So just to start, we can do the stem of the pumpkin actually. So I'm gonna go in with a brown paint here. And kind of where I drew my guideline, I'm painting down. I don't mind if it bleeds into what I've already painted a little bit. So I'm just going in and painting, giving it a little bit more of a rough edge. We're gonna add some detail in a little bit, but I'm actually gonna make part of my brown a little bit darker just by mixing in some blue there. And I can add some shading to one side if I want. I like to do this while it's wet, and then once it's dry, we can go in and kind of fine tune the details. And then same idea with this darker paint that I've made. I can add that into the tip here and just give it a little bit of shading. So with that exact same color that I've mixed actually, my darker brown, I can add to the center of this flower here. And I am just going to do a cluster of dots. And then to add a little bit more definition to my petals, I'm dipping my brush in my water just to take away some of that paint. And I'm just gonna do some really light strokes that sort of imitate the shape of the petal, but you can see I'm not doing it just on the outside of each petal. I'm trying to actually mix it into the centers as well, and that's going to give it a lot more of a really natural, really elegant look, while still giving it the definition that it needs. Now while we're waiting for our pumpkin to dry to add more details there, let's go in and we'll add a little bit more to our rose. So I'm going in with my red paint that's just a little bit darker than what I used already, and I'm actually just going to follow the shapes that I've already painted. And I'm just doing sort of these half circle lines, and it's truly just to give some definition while still keeping this a really nice and loose floral. So you can see that just that little bit makes it stand out so much more. This is something that you guys don't need to be too particular on how it looks exactly. We just want to get those loose lines in to really add some definition. And with our leaves, we're going to add detail as well. So I'm going in with the green that's just a touch darker than what I was just painting with here. And I'm just gonna add some really light veins into my painting. And we'll do the same with these leaves here. I really like this technique of using kind of the same tone that you were painting with prior, because it adds really subtle detail without it being a stark contrast of, say, painting this with a really dark green or with a completely different color. Now I kind of like adding to my pumpkins just to make them a little bit more interesting. I'm sticking with my small brush here, going back into my brown with my really skinny tip of my brush. You're welcome to add just a little curl it attaches. And if it's easier for you to use a smaller brush for this, then by all means, go for it. And while I have that brush paint on my brush, I'm adding some strokes into the stem of my pumpkin here, just on the one side, and it's gonna make it look more realistic. I can kind of show where it's attaching here as well. Okay, so now that this seems to be drying more, we can go in and we can add a little bit more definition and shading. So I gave some variation between the colors here, and the reason for that is just so that we can see the difference in kind of the sections of the pumpkin. So with that, I am going to go in with my small brush, and I'm gonna make a little bit more of that brown orange mix to start. And that's kind of for this center section. So I'm going over, it's very dark right now to start, but then we're gonna go into our water and we're just gonna blend it out into the center. So it's a little bit different than using the wet on wet technique just because we're doing it after the fact a little bit, but it'll still help you get that same effect. Now we can do the same thing over here, just by blending out that color. On this side, I want it to have a bit more contrast. And the key is to work kind of in where the creases of your pumpkin would be. And then I'm going with a little bit more of a yellowy tone on the other side. And that's just so that you can see the difference and it won't become a really muddy mixture of colors. So again, slightly different tone on this side. And I'm just adding that extra little bit of shading. And now while I have this kind of yellow color on my brush, I just want to mix it in a little bit to the bottom here so that we can see sort of where the pumpkin would end, just to make this look nice and cohesive. Okay, so now that we've done that, I want to just fill this out a little bit more with some more branches. So we're actually going to start with a brown branch here. I'm just mixing in my paint, and we're gonna do sort of the same idea as this one, but we'll do just some little leaves. I'm doing a really skinny stem here, and then we're just gonna paint some little brown leaves that are gonna come up. And they're just gonna really subtly overlap our pumpkin. I can add a stem down here as well, just so that everything ties in super well. And I'm using the exact same concept for painting these leaves as I did for my other leaves, where I use the tip of my paintbrush to get the nice pointed edge. I can do another little one here if I want. And the idea with this is that we're just really filling out the painting more. So the last other thing I'm going to add is just a dried looking eucalyptus branch. So I'm going into my green, I'm mixing it with a bit of my blue to give it that really soft, subtle color. And I'm just going to paint, sticking out of here, some circles for the leaves. Really messy circles, they don't need to be too perfect. And then I'm just doing those thin lines for the branches coming down. And I can kind of do the same thing on the other side, as if it's peeking out from in behind the pumpkin. So as you guys can see, now that you've added all of the details, leaves, flowers, everything comes together so nicely. This is such an easy painting to do that really looks so beautiful in your home as decor. I've done these before and written Happy Thanksgiving underneath them, which is just such a simple way to spruce up your home for this season. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If there's anything else that you want to see in the future, make sure to leave a comment below and let me know. Also, if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. We'll see you next time.